Friday, and then that's at 9:70 Santorum for the welcome party. And then Saturday and Sunday, it's over there at the Marigold Waterfront. And then on Monday, they head on over to Anguilla for the 50th anniversary celebration of the Anguilla Festival. All right, so make sure you check out the K-Band app, actually the website. I think that's kbandSXM.com. I got to double check what the website is. So get your tickets. They also just put out things that you need to know when it comes to security and parking for this weekend over there in Marigold. So check it out on Calaboom's Facebook page as well. Got some guests joining us in the building. Party for Progress, PFP. We got the top and the bottom of the list. So we got number one, Melissa Gumbs.
Yes, sir.
Number one, the party leader. And then we have Miklos, the foundation, I guess. Number 12.
Good morning.
Morning.
The PFP. So welcome to the both of you. Now we've heard from Melissa before. So let's talk to Miklos this morning first. Miklos Giterson, number 12 on the Party for Progress slate. Welcome to the Super Duper Morning Show, and I guess welcome to PFP.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Good morning, St. Martin. Good morning, listeners all over the world.
So you're no stranger when it comes to St. Martin politics. You actually once served as the Minister of Romy at one point.
Correct.
In your life, and now you're contesting the upcoming snap elections.
Yes, sir.
For a parliamentary position, at least for now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit. Who is Miklos and why PFP?
Miklos Giterson. Good morning, everyone. Again. Why PFP? Let me start. Miklos Giterson. Many of you may know me as the Minister of Romy. I served that. I had that position for 20 months. Was sworn in twice as minister in 2018.
You sworn in twice?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Interim and then
interim,
and then following
January,
after.
and then that summer we had an election and then sworn in again. With the UD fraction,
right?
If you remember, up in DP had come together. And now PFP. Why PFP? It was always PFP for me from the beginning. Like I always tell everyone, I remember my first PFP meeting when we were still pondering over the name of the party. So I go way back with PFP from the beginning.
Right. So you were there from the beginning, but you just always stayed behind the scenes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
this is my first election that I'm running.
That you're actually running. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So why did you say, you know what, I think it's time for me to, contest this?
I made a promise to myself that I would run the next election. I just wasn't expecting it to be 2 months after the government had sworn in. And if I can't keep a promise to myself, then I can't keep word to the people of the country. So I decided, yes, this is the time. Well, the universe decided this is the time for me to run now. And I keep a word to myself. I want to advocate for policy. I come out of the policy department in Romy. Been working there since 2006 permanently. I've been doing internship there since 2001. So I got like a couple, 2 decades in that department. So time to advocate for policies and
Now PFP has been very critical, especially when it comes to that ministry, the Ministry of Romy. And like we mentioned, you were there at one point as the former minister. Seeing what they're talking about and highlighting now, and from when you were there, what happened in between? And can you confirm, or are these some of the same issues that you had when you were a minister, or do you think things got worse? Maybe things got better. What happened in between?
The energy is more. It's a lot more now. Back then, I mean, it was a lot back then as well, because it was right after Hurricane Irma. We had to get the country, back on track, build back resilient. But now, things are normal, and people want. There's a lot more requests coming in now, so it's a lot more hectic than back then. And I always tell people, government work is not difficult work; it's just a lot of work. It's the amount of work that you have to do and put in, and the dedication. It's overwhelming. It could become overwhelming.
Now some people might say, okay, well, Miklos, he was there at Romy at the time. And of course, PFP, like I said, they're very critical when it comes to the ministry. So why, when Miklos was there, he didn't do a lot of the stuff that PFP is complaining about now?
Well, back then I was focused on building back resiliently. So it was more focusing that we have stronger roofs on our homes and stuff like that. And
the cleanups,
exactly. Dealing with the ENNIA dump and the regular dump. And back then, remember, it had a lot of dump fires. And
right.
stuff
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah.
So I was more focused on those aspects. But now, it's so much more stuff. Yes, it's a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
Just dealing with the day-to-day operations in Rummy alone could be very overwhelming.
Yeah. Now, Melissa, when it comes to being a member of PFP, I've heard many of the candidates say that it's a pretty rigorous application that you have to go through. Yeah.
I think we try our best, and it's something that I said since 2020. You know, we try to, as much as we can, screen potential candidates and members. Because this is always something that comes up, right? You have like you have an election, and then you have persons that get into parliament or they go up into the executive, and then it's always a question of, well, how do we screen them, how do we whatever. And I kind of try to mirror what is already done in Holland, for example. You get screened, you get put through the ringer before you even get to be a member of a party.
Yeah.
And they have tools available to them where they can even do background checks on candidates, potential candidates, to make sure that they are aligning with party values, that there's nothing in the back that's going to come out and frighten the public or damage them or the party in any way. And we do try to do something similar. There's a few meetings involved, and it can take a while, which is why a snap election is kind of tough to grow your list, because you don't just want to point at someone and say, I like your smell, come on and join the slate. You want to be able to build lists that are filled with quality candidates that can serve in any capacity that you need them to.
Yeah. Now we know in St. Martin people tend to remember the things that they need to remember when it's going to be good for them. and I'm sure, I don't know if it happened already, but people might bring up the controversy that surrounded Miklos when he was in his tenure then. And they might say, oh, well, look, I thought PFP was a party of integrity, but look, this happened with Miklos, but he's still in the party slate.
I think that, first of all, I have information behind that incident that, it's not for me to share. Miklos is right there. And that's if he wants to share it publicly. I think we need to also look at the individuals that were around the minister at the time when that happened. And I also think that there are certain things that you cannot continuously penalize people for. For me, when it comes to being a minister, when it comes to being an MP, what matters is your integrity. I think that the apology after the fact, the way that Miklos conducted himself after that unfortunate incident,
the fact that he actually stepped down, which
stepped down, even when, to be honest, he didn't have to. The Constitution tells you when a minister should step down, and that's something that we said quite often.
He took accountability. Basically.
Yeah, and I think that that alone, is it says a lot about his character, and that is what matters, because a lot of times people conflate integrity with every little thing that could go wrong. If you jaywalk, it doesn't mean you can't be a minister. If you understand. But I think if you do things that are unethical, if you make unethical decisions, if you show nepotism, favoritism in your decision making, in the way you conduct yourself, whether it's in government or in a business, I've said quite often that in private sector, a lot of times when you see a CEO get fired or removed, or they do the pursuing future endeavors, that's corporate speak for you got fired. Normally it's with an unethical decision that they made. It's very rarely with something that directly says that's against the law. So it's there's a gray area there that I don't know if most people can get the nuance of it. But I think that in the time that I've known Miklos, he showed me that is not his character at all. That his character is one of integrity, one where he wants to see things done right for the country, and has been that has been his mantra, as he said, since the very first meeting with PFP. Even going so far as he said, we were trying to figure out a name. We went through some horrible options, I'm not gonna lie. And then basically, I think his whole thing was the name has to convey what you want to see the party do. So in the end, where we landed is where we did. And I think that's why, for me, I'm like, yeah. And we have those conversations with everyone to see if there's anything that you may be, a bit iffy about or so, and then we make that decision if we can move forward with it or not.
Right. Now, what the situation that happened with Rayon Peterson and the governor, I know that's something that you guys also said that you will be focusing on, which might be a little bit difficult because we're in a snap election and you want to focus also on campaigning.
Yes.
But how far have you guys went with this situation? Because I know you said you were going to take it.
That's that is for Rayon to also do, and we are consistently talking about that. But of course, right now, you're in a campaign. You don't really want to split your focus on that. And I think he's doing a lot of great work as chief of staff at VRAMI. Helping to guide, the minister in the form of Patrice Gumbs, Miklos himself, and you have that strength in the cabinet now of persons that know how it works, that knew how it was going bad, saw how it went worse, and are now trying to make the little changes that can actually make the machinery of VRAMI run better. And that's something that Rayon is great at doing. And I'm happy to see how it's been progressing so far. So whatever happens on August 20th, because that's, let's face it, we're getting those results 4:30 in the morning. I think whatever happens that day, we will see how we move forward from there.
Right. And moving forward, after the snap elections, will PFP be seeking to go back into government?
Of course.
You're hearing the talks, the rhetoric saying, okay, finally PFP got in. They formed, according to them, a slim majority. Why would they have subjected themselves when they could have probably seen or felt that maybe this coalition wasn't as strong as it could have been?
And I've said this before, it doesn't matter about your majority now. I'll never try to bring it up, but my father's cabinet had 10 people in parliament backing it, and that cabinet still fell. It's about the characters of the people sitting in parliament. Right. And if we continue to vote in persons that have no sense of the definition of the word accountability, much less how to spell it, I think you're going to end up with this repeated, situations where persons will try to entice someone away from a coalition. The person that is enticed then drops the government, and then you end up where we are right now. But it has nothing to do with majority. We could have had 9, 10, because when I looked across the aisle, there were characters there that I was like, I don't know if this is. Either way, you're jumping in a pond of unknowns. So I think, we made the best decision that we thought was good at the time. We were committed to seeing it through. And I think what we have seen so far is definitely pushing us to, once again, try to get back into a scenario where we can continue the good work that has been started in VRAMI.
Yeah. And any regrets with that formation of the coalition now that you guys are in? Because now you're seeing sometimes even coalition partners are sometimes going after each other, throwing little jabs here, throwing each other under the bus.
I mean, you see the farmer coalition jumping on each other as well, right. From whether it's on the radio or on Facebook, the Twitter fingers be twittering. So I think it's either way, it's a campaign, and persons can choose to conduct themselves like that, screaming at each other subliminally or directly, because I've seen that as well. The little hint jabs being thrown, whether it's public meetings or whatever, or you can choose to try to handle it for yourself behind the scenes, and then if not, then maybe sometimes a little public push is necessary. But that happens, I think, no matter what. It's a campaign.
Yeah. Miklos, your standpoint. So, if elected, or some people say when elected, putting that out in the universe. What is some of the main issues that you would like to tackle from a legislative point of view?
Policies and ordinances. Not only submitting them, because when I was minister for those 20 months, we had the Middle Region zoning plan and the Dutch Water zoning plan, which on the floor of Parliament. And since then, I can't recall any policies reaching on the floor of Parliament. And coming out of that department and knowing the work that my colleagues put in all day is prudent for me to see these things reach the floor of Parliament and be approved and
executed,
and enforced more
That's really
importantly, because some of the policies are there but they're not enforced. So this is what I'm advocating.
And I think that's the enforcement is the thing that we try to constantly stress on, right? Because people have this misconception that for Parliament we just have to keep pumping out legislation like a machine. But really and truly, it's Rayon has said already, we have one of the best codified systems in the kingdom. Codified meaning the laws are written down. The problem that we have across the board is enforcement.
Yes.
And a lot of times what enforcement takes is money. And that's why a lot of our focus last campaign and this campaign has been on, securing and making public spending more efficient, more effective, You know, we're in constant discussions as well with the Minister of Finance regarding the decree, the resolution to regulate tendering for government, so that it can stop being this ad hoc kind of situation where we put out a tender and then maybe something happens and you know, you go, you decide as minister you don't want to give that contract out, and then you go through a whole review. That does not work well for the country, because that's money. Because at the end of the day, the biggest thing that spends money is time.
Right.
The more time you take to fix these things, the more money you're going to waste. And without the money, you cannot do proper enforcement of anything, really. And it's fixing those little loopholes
Right.
that you know, I don't want to use the phrase, but yeah, that money kind of disappears and vanishes.
Yeah, because I just wanted to get into that, because we've been hearing reports of monies missing from this ministry and that fund and whatnot. And Looney, number 3 on the PFP slate, came up with the phrase that everybody's using now to stop thieving.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
That was my dad.
Ah,
So
okay.
that he told us that story, I think, even before she had joined. We were sitting down, I think, at his house. He's gonna hate me for mentioning that we were by his house. He was telling us a story of when he was prime minister.
Right.
That was an infamous thing he said. He said a couple words were in there that I cannot say on radio, but he did tell a group of civil servants to, you know, to if we could just stop TV for a year, things would be better. And that was basically where that came from. So it's that is the mentality that I've been brought up with, that I've been, you know, that's been instilled in me. You just have to, at the end of the day, it is public money now. It's not your money. It's not the companies that is for profit. They're not from Google. You know, you're stealing from the people essentially when you do not regulate how their money is spent properly.
Yeah. Our investigation, because I know we had the former Minister of Justice here, Anna Richardson, and I brought that up with her yesterday. She said, well, she also heard the accusations that funds were missing from the crime fund, and she said, okay, well, if that's true, where's the proof? Bring it. Bring the paperwork and whatnot. Have investigations been done on the coalition's part? Because I've been hearing also too that from the coalition that funds are missing. What was said was supposed to be there is not there.
Yeah.
Budget cuts had to be made.
Well, what has I think been brought forward by the Minister of Finance is that the budget had to be adjusted because the budget that was passed was not really accurate. You know, we also had a discussion with CFT where they expressed that they had cautioned against including things like the sale of ENNIA shares and also the monies anticipated from the tourist tax. And, you know, the reality is the legislation for those things, for those revenues to be realized, is not there. So that's why during that budget discussion, I even said, you know, to me, it looks like a bit of a falsification. It's not a falsification. Well, yeah, it's kind of like a legal cooking of the books to put in a projection on something that has no basis to be even considered a projection. And that's, I think, the struggle that we have. And so now that has to be taken out. That, I think, 13 million or 12 million for the ENNIA shares and then 10 million for the tourist tax. There's no legislation for that.
Right.
So you know, yes, I know that a budget is usually a projection of what you expect to make and spend, but it's not, when you're in a government, it's not the same as if you're in a private company. Okay, Sony can project, okay, we launching the PS6, you know, in December, and we're gonna make, we anticipate to make, you know, $1 billion in sales. They could do that because in a back room somewhere in Japan, the PS6 is sitting there.
Right.
You understand? They've tested it. They've given it to people like you and me, and we've broken it. We've tried it out, and we know that it's there. They can make that projection on those sales. But if you are relying on legislation to be enacted, you can't really project nothing because you don't know how it's going to go.
Right.
So yeah, it's tough, and those are the questions that we ask. But ultimately, that is a lot of what had to be removed from the budget. So you can't really, you know, plan if you're not budgeting properly, basically. Yeah.
The Samarting Housing Foundation, I think it's does that
Housing Development.
Housing Development. Yeah. Does that fall under which ministry or?
So I think Miklos will maybe share more about this actually.
They fall, well, the shareholder rep falls under VROMI.
VROMI, right.
Yeah, VROMI is the one that has say in the shareholder rep, but it's a board that operates on their own, and a lot of people come to VROMI thinking that VROMI can solve the problems that they have with the board.
Right. But
it's the board that VROMI has to deal with, and it is a back and forth that we have going most of the time. But yeah, it is a
That's our situation just came up when it pertains to the Dr. J Foundation and tenants being moved and whatnot.
Yes.
So I said, I don't know if that's a VROMI situation that has to be dealt with, or is the board?
No, I think Dr. J is VSA.
Okay.
Yeah, the
That
minister of VSA, Dr. J's foundation, the shelter basically. So,
That
and I
would be
think,
VSA.
yeah, that would be
That would
VSA.
be VSA.
And I think that the minister put out a statement about that. And again, it goes back to what I said, that to operate those things cost money. And you know, it's unfortunate. Nobody wants for such a cut to have to be made. But I think you know, you also have to kind of weigh, well, how are we going to pay for this? It can't be that we have to pay for everything and nobody can explain where's that funding going to come from. That's the reality of it. You know, so I think definitely need to look at how we handle social aid and social benefits and what type of revenue generation is being put in place to make sure that we can provide these services to people that need them most.
Right.
Yeah.
How has the campaign trail been going for you so far, Miklos? So I know you're a very private guy. You're more behind the scenes, and you like to execute, but you don't like to look for that you know, that praise that praise and worship, like, oh look, it was me. So how is it for you to say, like, now, okay, I actually have to be,
It has been challenging, but I'm doing it. A lot of repetitive work, and just going out and asking people and convincing people, and a lot of Samaritan people tired. I mean, they say this is the third election in a year,
right?
Like
technically
counting the French side as well on the island. But I must say the feedback has been positive.
Right.
It's just a lot of people like, I don't want to vote again. I wasn't planning on voting again, but now that you running, I'm gonna come out my house. I get in that a lot. But the feedback has been positive, I must say.
All right. Well, elections is next 2.5 weeks?
18 days.
18 days. Within the next 18 days, what can we expect in Parliament, Mel?
Parliament, actually,
I know there's a lot you guys still have to talk about.
So this tomorrow at 10 a.m. we have the continuation of the meeting with the Minister of Justice on crime, the rise of crime. Well, it's a public meeting, so what has to happen now is I believe the minister has to come back to answer the questions or comments that he received in the second round, and then thereafter the meeting should be closed, barring any motions, which I'm pretty sure there'll be at least one.
Barring any motions or emotions?
Well, both. I think. Well, both. So basically, because there is no other round that you can speak in, so it's just been to answer questions, clarifications that MPs may need to those answers. And then we wrap that up. And then there's one meeting that I'm waiting for feedback on whether it's going to be planned next week, because this week is already done. And that is the ENNIA meeting to discuss the solution for ENNIA. That's on the table right now. So definitely trying to make sure that we handle that in an appropriate amount of time, because we don't want to miss any deadline or anything, because that impacts the interest rate that we receive for the refinance COVID loans.
Right. And going back to that justice meeting, you spoke in Parliament, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. Your colleagues spoke as well. We've heard from other ministers about the threats that they've been receiving and the security of their well-being as well. You as a parliamentarian, how do you feel about your whole security, not only for yourself, your safety and security, but for the island as well, as we've been seeing a rise in crime, rise in gun violence?
For me, I just need to see action right now. And I've also asked the minister, and I asked in that meeting, are there plans to set up an amnesty program, and we've heard in the past that didn't really yield a lot of feedback. Persons are not going to turn in their illegal guns, let's just face it. But then I think you need to strategically and tactically think about where can I deploy checkpoints maybe to stop vehicles at random and just search. And if I find a weapon, just take it. Not necessarily it's up to them if they want to impose a penalty or a fine or so, but I think just to get it off the street, or if you find them, ask persons, how did you get them? Maybe question them a bit about that. On an island, it's difficult, you land a dinghy at night anywhere and you can bring in whatever. And I think that's sort of like the reputation that the Caribbean as a whole has, because it's not just us struggling with this, to the point where when I saw that you had a shooting in the Cayman Islands, in Grand Cayman, I said, okay, Now the finance bros are getting violent, you know, because it's tough, because their whole reputation is we're trust and where you can, you know, tax haven your money away and such. But you know, when you get to that point on an island like that where you don't expect it, and then we see what's happening in Anguilla as well, which is also very concerning for me, considering this August Monday coming up. I really hope that, you know, it's a peaceful and safe August Monday for everyone. But yeah, I think I just want to see that there is a plan being rolled out. I know that things cannot be shared willy-nilly like that, but I think once persons see it being put into action, it didn't matter if you shared it or not. So I hope tomorrow we have some more concrete statements from the minister and from KPSM and everyone else in the justice chain about what's going to be done to tackle what we're seeing.
All right.
But for my for my safety, because you did ask, it has always been a concern for us, you know, we have to walk from the parking lot to the building, etc. There's even been persons on live on Facebook looking for me in the Parliament building, or at least outside of it, you know, and I think you're always at a risk, you know, when you're a public figure. It's definitely disconcerting, but I do not think that all of what has happened over the last 2 weeks is politically motivated. I think that I don't want to give credence to that thought, and I don't want to give it any energy, but I always make sure to take my own precautions, be aware of, you know, my surroundings and such, and that's really what was the start. Because it happened, I'm not special, it could happen to anybody. So I just urge everyone to also be vigilant when you're out and about.
All right, MP Melissa Gumbs here with us, the leader of the Party for Progress, candidate number 1 on the slate. Then we have Miklos, candidate number 12 on the Party for Progress slate. Thanks to both of you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Any last special message for the listeners out there, especially the voters, for them to come out on August 19th?
Most definitely.
Choose progress.
Choose progress. Most definitely. I think that we have this, it's a unique opportunity, even though it's a tiring opportunity. And I think, you know, from the shift that we saw that started happening in January, that shift needs to grow bigger and it needs to continue.
Oh, manifesto. How's that? That's still available for
Yes,
people?
that's still available. It's available on pfpmanifesto.com, I believe, but we will share that later on. And we also have printed copies still. If you see me on the road, you can just stop. It's in my car. I don't have a back seat. I just have a campaign seat. It's just, you know, manifesto hats and shirts, basically.
And you guys do a lot of visual, what do you call it? Like, there's a visual version or like a shortened version, but in the visual style of the manifesto.
Yeah, so the videos are still there. They're being reshared now by the campaign team. You know, across our social media and via WhatsApp, you know, and we have a video as well with Miklos and Mila, Solange Lumina Duncan, basically sharing their views and just a recap of the videos. So those are still available for persons to view. Nothing has changed. I think, you know, in 17 days, not much could have changed. So it's the same manifesto, just with Nikki and Mila added.
Okay, there you go. Thank you guys again for joining us. Before you leave, the question of the day: what's your favorite 5-star tell song? That's the toughest question I asked you today, huh?
Which one? No, I can't sit on.
You can't sit on there. I'll let you slide.
I like Clark's, but I can't. Most of the others I can't say online on radio. So yeah.
There you go. Don't forget August 19th. Snap elections is coming up. They're coming up. And make sure you go out and vote, whether you vote for PFP or whoever you choose to vote for. Just make sure you go out and exercise that right to vote. All right, let's take a quick break. Birthday is coming up next. Quick wrap up, and then we got the quick hot copy. Then